There are places on our planet that can capture the imagination and baffle even the most seasoned researchers. We're not talking about man-made structures, but rather monuments created by nature itself in an era before humans emerged. We're confronted with ancient evidence so grand and sweeping that a single question arises. What unknown force could have created it? Mysterious fossils force us to reconsider everything we knew about the history of life on Earth, about entire ecosystems that vanished without a trace. And these mysteries are not fiction or myth. They are based on real discoveries, on solid, irrefutable facts. Paleontologists and geologists have been grappling with these mysteries for decades, trying to understand what exactly happened in those distant times and who were the protagonists of these dramas. And perhaps the most important question that haunts us: what other secrets does the Earth conceal? From colossal bone cemeteries where the remains of hundreds of giants are intertwined into a single monolith to entire worlds buried beneath the ocean. Today, we'll embark on a journey into the deepest and most unsolved mysteries of prehistory. So, settle in, prepare to dive into the past, and let's explore a world where history itself seems frozen in anticipation. Let's travel to the picturesque lands known today as North America. Millions of years ago, a drama of truly planetary proportions unfolded here, among rivers and valleys. Ruins unfold before our eyes, not of temples, but of entire animal civilizations. These ruins are gigantic bone layers where the titans of the Jurassic period rest. However, beneath these layers lies an even more ancient and mysterious foundation. A monolith of bones, enormous fossilized remains, embodies both a true miracle of nature and a chilling tragedy. The largest of these layers, which scientists call the bone wall, consists of the skeletons of dozens of sauropods, each weighing as much as several modern elephants. These bones have been masterfully compressed by time over a vast area, creating the impression that some gigantic force carefully arranged them in one place. But the real mystery is the so-called fallen titan. A skeleton of massive proportions, weighing nearly 100 tons, it still lies apart from the main cluster, as if biding its time. It seems to have been the last to fall in this great battle for life. However, no one can say with absolute certainty how this could have happened. There are numerous theories about how the remains of these giants ended up in one place, ranging from the widely accepted to the most improbable. But beyond that, there are other versions of their demise. Regarding these mass graves, some researchers suggest they may have been the result of catastrophic droughts. Ancient giants, driven by thirst, flocked to the last, drying up watering holes and perished there one after another. Others claim that monstrous floods were to blame, carrying the bodies of animals for many kilometers, dumping them in river bends. This only adds to the mystery of their origin. Some link these events to asteroid impacts or supervolcanic eruptions. If true, the transport of these remains could have been the work of blind and merciless forces of nature, not slow extinction. But what was this force, and how did it accomplish this? Some researchers hypothesize that these mass graves were the result of an unknown ancient disease. Perhaps a deadly virus decimated herds of giants, and, weakened, they huddled together in their final moments of life. Others believe the answer lies in forgotten laws of ancient ecology, lost along with bygone eras. If we knew exactly how they lived and died, we could understand much more about that ancient world. Another controversial theory is that these bone mountains are the result of events beyond our understanding of natural processes. This harks back to ancient theories about cyclical catastrophes on a planetary scale. The enormous size and astonishing concentration of remains in one place raise suspicions that this area may have once been the epicenter of a terrible tragedy, the purpose of which we are not yet able to comprehend. Despite the lack of direct evidence, this hypothesis has continued to excite scientists for decades. What is certain is that no one has been able to provide a comprehensive explanation for how the bones of hundreds of enormous animals ended up mixed together in one place. They remain one of the greatest mysteries of paleontology. If nature could create such monuments to death millions of years ago, then what else could it have done, and what secrets did it leave behind? The mystery of these skeletal ruins isn't the only one forcing us to reconsider our understanding of the past. The prehistoric world abounds with incredible artifacts, fossils that seemingly shouldn't exist, yet they do. Next, we'll explore one of the most discussed aspects: stone maps of ancient life. Upon closer analysis, it became clear that these footprints contain information that defies current understanding of animal behavior. In fossilized mud, hundreds of millions of years old, footprints were discovered that create an entirely new context. While these footprints aren't always essential to understanding the overall picture of history, they can be left in the background as you contemplate the fates of ancient worlds to the sounds of these intriguing, unsolved mysteries. Now let's return to the main topic, the next mystery, frozen in stone. This mystery, over 150 million years old, is a unique phenomenon in the field of paleontology. In the 1940s, amateur paleontologist Roland Bird discovered it in the Paluxy River bed in Texas. For millions of years, this stone record remained hidden beneath layers of rock and forgotten. Upon closer inspection, it was revealed to be the work of not one, but two titans of the Cretaceous period. At first glance, these were simply dinosaur tracks imprinted in ancient mud. However, upon closer inspection, these tracks revealed information that contradicts our understanding of predator-prey relationships. But the more researchers studied this trackway, the clearer it became that it was far from ordinary. Particularly controversial is the fact that the tracks of a huge predatory dinosaur, similar to Acrocanthosaurus, run parallel to those of a giant sauropod. But here's the problem. They aren't running. They're walking at a calm, measured pace, side by side, for hundreds of meters. This stone map of events remained a mystery for a long time. It depicts a scene, not of a hunt, not of a stampede, but of something entirely different. It's hard to shake the feeling that these tracks were made at a moment we can't explain in terms of simple predator-prey instincts. Modern paleontologists point out that such behavior is completely atypical. A predator wouldn't simply follow its potential prey. As Roland Bird discovered while studying these tracks, nature left clues carefully etched into the stone. He insisted that his work wasn't simply a description of fossils. His conclusions were based on dozens of observations, some of which go back to the very foundations of behavioral ecology. The author of this hypothesis used data borrowed from observations of modern predators and their complex social interactions. If true, this suggests that dinosaurs possessed behavioral patterns we are only beginning to understand. Some researchers suggest that these tracks represent evidence of complex, now lost social behavior, preserved in stone with astonishing precision long before the advent of humans. These scientists believe the predator may have simply waited, following a herd and hoping for one individual to weaken. Fragments of these behavioral patterns survived and were imprinted in stone for future researchers who had no idea of their true meaning. This theory is supported by finds at other sites, which also depict scenes remarkably unlike a simple hunt. However, there is an alternative view. Some scientists believe the tracks were misinterpreted. What appears to be a shared walk is, in fact, a simple coincidence. A predator and a herbivore could have passed along the same stretch of coastline, but within hours or even days of each other. Their paths simply overlapped. Limited knowledge at the time could have led to inaccuracies in interpretation, which would explain the apparent presence of two enemies side by side. Another theory suggests that ancient ecosystems were far more complex than we've traditionally imagined. Perhaps symbiotic or commensal relationships existed between species we're unaware of. They may have traveled together over vast distances during migrations that were then lost to time. If so, these tracks may be the remnants of an ancient behavioral tradition that has since disappeared, leaving only cryptic hints. Despite decades of research, there's no definitive answer to the question. Do these stones preserve echoes of a lost world, or are they simply a paleontological error? These tracks are the product of a time-warped drama that only seems mysterious in retrospect. Whatever the truth, this stone map remains one of the most extraordinary and intriguing in the history of life on Earth. One of the most enigmatic mysteries is this stone record, a document that continues to challenge our understanding of the past. However, it's far from the only ancient enigma. Even more striking are other testimonies from bygone eras. Among such discoveries, the penny coin discovered in Maine stands out. This tiny artifact remains a fascinating piece in the vast mosaic of history, and while it doesn't provide irrefutable proof of the existence of a Viking settlement in the area, it does raise important questions. If just one coin can so dramatically change our understanding of the past, how many more such pieces of evidence are hidden from our eyes, patiently awaiting discovery? History is full of unsolved mysteries, artifacts, and monuments that continue to fuel our imagination. Researchers of ancient civilizations continue to amaze the world with their discoveries, forcing us to reconsider seemingly unshakable historical dogmas. The penny coin is just one of countless clues hinting that the past was far more complex and multifaceted than we've come to believe. But not all mysteries are connected to lost treasures or lost cities. Some lie right beneath our feet, literally carved in stone. And one of the most astonishing mysteries of this kind awaits us in the very heart of ancient Egypt, in Aswan. Here rests an unfinished obelisk. Had this project been completed, the world would have seen the most magnificent monolith ever created by man. But for reasons that remain a mystery, the ancient craftsmen abandoned their work, and this stone giant remains frozen in time, forever fused with the rock from which they attempted to extract it. Aswan, located on the southern border of Egypt, was the cradle of some of the most impressive engineering marvels of antiquity. It was here, along the mighty Nile, in colossal quarries, that the Egyptians carved colossal stone blocks that would later become part of great temples and pyramids. These quarries still bear the scars left by the tools of ancient builders, mute testimony to their incredible skill. They were an inexhaustible source of material for numerous legendary structures, including the majestic temple complexes of Karnak and Luxor. And yet, among all this titanic labor, one structure stands out, one that was never destined to be completed. Only partially separated from its parent rock and riddled with cracks, this obelisk is an unfinished structure of truly cyclopean proportions. It measures over 41 meters long, taller than a 13-story building, and its estimated weight reaches a monstrous 200 tons, comparable to 3 fully loaded Boeing 747 airplanes. If it had ever been completed and placed on its pedestal, it would have become the tallest and most massive obelisk in all of Egypt, far surpassing any other monoliths seen today at Karnak or even in Rome, where the Romans later took many Egyptian treasures. However, for some mysterious reason, this stone colossus was abandoned for millennia. Historians agree that its construction occurred during the reign of Queen Hatshepsut, one of the most powerful and controversial figures on the throne of ancient Egypt. The pharaohs who ruled in the 15th century BC were obsessed with gigantomania and were renowned for their incredibly ambitious construction projects. Among the most astonishing monuments of that era were the obelisks that still adorn the Karnak temple today. But this particular obelisk, the most grandiose of them all, was never destined to see the light of day. There are several theories explaining why construction suddenly ceased. The most widespread and logical of them is that right during the construction, when the monument was almost hewn from the rock, a huge fatal crack appeared in the granite. This defect made further transportation and installation of the obelisk virtually impossible, meaning all the colossal work was wasted. The Egyptians, renowned for their perfectionism and unrivaled skill in working with stone, most likely made the difficult decision to simply start from scratch elsewhere. However, some researchers believe things weren't so straightforward. The Egyptians were true masters of stonework, and their technology was so advanced that they could easily have found a way to fix the defect and complete the work. The methods they used to quarry and move multi-ton stone blocks were the height of engineering for their time. Some scholars suggest that if the problem had been just a single crack, the craftsmen would have found a way to use the surviving parts of the obelisk instead of abandoning such a grand project entirely. And yet, the mystery of why this titanic work was consigned to oblivion remains unsolved. One alternative theory takes us from the world of engineering to the world of superstition. It holds that the obelisk was considered cursed or a portent of impending disaster. The ancient Egyptians were a deeply religious people and firmly believed that the gods constantly sent them signs capable of predetermining the fate of entire nations and their projects. The appearance of such a monstrous crack on a nearly completed sacred monument could have been interpreted as a dire warning from above, a sign that the gods opposed the completion of this construction. In a society where religion and belief in the supernatural permeated absolutely every aspect of life, from everyday life to government, such a sign would undoubtedly have been taken very seriously. But there are those who believe the reason was far more prosaic. Perhaps this obelisk was simply too ambitious a project, even for its time, and was abandoned due to insurmountable technical difficulties. While the Egyptians had successfully moved incredibly heavy obelisks before, this particular example was significantly larger and heavier than anything they had ever encountered. Moving such a colossal and massive object would have required an unprecedented amount of effort and resources. The project required incredibly meticulous planning and the mobilization of a gigantic workforce. Some experts believe that when Hatshepsut's engineers fully realized the scale and complexity of the task at hand, the project was simply shelved in favor of more realistic and pressing matters. Be that as it may, this unfinished obelisk holds enormous interest for us today. Precisely because it remained unfinished, it lifts the veil of secrecy on the methods of ancient Egyptian stonemasons. Right at the site of its creation, clear evidence remains of how these grandiose monuments were carved from rock using technologies we still cannot fully understand. This monument is a memorial not only to ambition, but also to failure, which, paradoxically, preserved invaluable knowledge for us. Imagine a structure carved from a single stone that forces us to completely rethink the entire history of early human civilizations. There, in the southeast of modern-day Turkey, a secret has been hidden beneath the earth for millennia. Its name is Göbekli Tepe. This monument is so ancient that it appeared long before humans invented writing. It predates the Great Pyramids of Giza and predates the first known city on the planet. And yet, looking at its intricate carvings and gigantic stone pillars, we are confronted with an insoluble mystery. The level of skill and organization required for such construction, by all canons of science, simply could not have existed in that distant era. Who erected this incredible structure? And, even stranger, what force compelled them to bury their own creation under tons of earth? Let's delve into the story of one of the most stunning archaeological discoveries the world has ever seen. There's nothing in the ancient world that can compare to Göbekli Tepe. For millennia, this complex lay dormant beneath the hills of southeastern Turkey, completely hidden from human eyes. The first hints that something grandiose lay beneath the earth appeared as early as the 1960s, but no one could have imagined the true scale of the discovery. It wasn't until the 1990s, when German archaeologist Klaus Schmidt took up the case, that the world finally saw what had been buried beneath layers of time. And what he found shook the foundations of modern history and challenged everything we knew about our distant ancestors. Enormous circular structures emerged from the ground, like the skeletons of ancient giants. The center of each was crowned by majestic T-shaped limestone columns arranged with astonishing precision. Some of these stone giants soared almost 6 meters into the air, the height of a 2-story building, and weighed up to 20 tons, the equivalent of several adult elephants. But the true wonder lay beneath their surface. The stones were covered in intricate, detailed carvings depicting wild animals, mysterious symbols, and strange humanoid figures. The level of planning and execution of this megalithic complex is simply mind-boggling. But here's what's most astonishing. Göbekli Tepe was built, by conservative estimates, in the 9th millennium BC. This makes it the oldest known temple complex on the planet. Just think about it. It's 6,000 years older than Stonehenge and a full 7,000 years older than the Great Pyramid of Giza. At that time, we thought people were just primitive hunter-gatherers. They lived in small nomadic bands, knew neither agriculture nor cities, and certainly didn't possess the technology to build such cyclopean structures. Researchers are still puzzled by the meaning of the stone carvings. One theory holds that the carved animals carry deep symbolic meaning, personifying spirits or mythological creatures. Others believe they could have been warning signs, marking sacred or, conversely, extremely dangerous territory. The complex's layout itself appears highly unusual. Archaeologists have found no traces of permanent habitation here, virtually ruling out the idea that Göbekli Tepe was a settlement. Instead, scholars are inclined to believe that it was a grand ceremonial site, a kind of mecca for ancient tribes, where rituals and worship of unknown gods were performed. Perhaps it was a center where people from all over the area flocked for religious ceremonies or even astronomical observations. It's possible that the placement of the columns was strictly aligned with specific stars and constellations, reflecting celestial cycles, a practice we would later see in many megalithic structures around the world. However, this ancient complex is shrouded in a host of mysteries. At some point in its history, its builders, for some inexplicable reason, decided to abandon it. Moreover, they deliberately covered their creations with earth and debris, as if seeking to hide them forever from the world, or, conversely, preserve them for distant descendants. Why did they do this? Perhaps this place became considered cursed, or, conversely, so sacred that it needed to be hidden from the eyes of the uninitiated. Someone clearly wanted to erase it from human memory. One of the most intriguing theories holds that Göbekli Tepe was the catalyst that transformed nomadic hunters into sedentary farmers. Some scholars suggest that the colossal effort required to build and maintain this mega-temple simply forced people to switch to agriculture. Feeding the vast masses of workers and priests required the first permanent settlements and organized forms of labor. In other words, it wasn't agriculture that gave birth to civilization, but rather the thirst for faith and ritual that compelled people to settle down. There are even more daring hypotheses. What if Göbekli Tepe is the remnant of a long-vanished, highly advanced civilization that existed even before the agricultural revolution? Proponents of this idea point to the possibility of a lost society, wiped off the face of the Earth by a global catastrophe, such as the one that ended the last ice age. For example, the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis suggests that a comet or asteroid struck our planet approximately 12,800 years ago, causing a dramatic climate change and monstrous floods. Some researchers believe this cosmic impact could have wiped out an entire proto-civilization, leaving behind only ruins like Göbekli Tepe as the only evidence of its former glory. However, there is another explanation. Perhaps this complex was built by an incredibly skilled and organized group of those same hunter-gatherers, but that would completely upend our understanding of the origins of civilization. We are likely greatly underestimating the capabilities of our distant ancestors. The knowledge necessary to build such structures could have existed long before agriculture became the primary source of food. This knowledge and beliefs could have been passed down orally, from generation to generation, in ways that modern science cannot yet explain. If Göbekli Tepe was indeed a temple, it proves that ancient people had complex religious and spiritual beliefs thousands of years before the first agrarian communities emerged. The very structure of the complex suggests an incredible level of cooperation. Different tribes and groups of people must have united for a common, greater purpose. But who did they worship? Some researchers see encrypted maps of the constellations in the carvings on the columns, linking the site to the worship of the stars and celestial powers. Others believe it was a necropolis, or a place of ancestor veneration, where rituals were performed in their honor. One of the most striking discoveries made here is the complete absence of household items. Unlike any other ancient site, no pottery, permanent dwellings, or outbuildings were found here. This has raised even more questions about the purpose of this site and its role in the lives of ancient people. Archaeologists are certain that Göbekli Tepe was never a home. It was created for something far more important than simple survival. The discovery of this mysterious object forces us to take a completely new look at the entire chronology of human development. If our ancestors were capable of creating such a complex structure thousands of years before the first cities, then what else were they capable of? And where did they acquire this knowledge so far back in time? Some believe that Göbekli Tepe is just the tip of the iceberg, and that somewhere underground, other, even more ancient structures await their time. Perhaps before us lies the very missing link in our history, evidence of ancient, lost knowledge that predates everything we know. Despite decades of excavations, Göbekli Tepe still holds far more mysteries than answers. Every layer of earth removed raises new questions, and with each new discovery, the mysteries only deepen. The history we knew is changing before our eyes. Like the anonymous builders of this temple, ancient civilizations have left their traces across the world, impressive structures that still seem incredible to us today. Some are carved directly into the rock with such precision that it seems impossible. These astonishing structures serve as an eternal reminder that the past holds countless secrets we cannot even imagine. But sometimes the greatest secrets are hidden not in ancient temples or massive stone structures, but in ink, scrawled on parchment centuries ago and locked behind an unsolved code. One such book, full of symbols no one has been able to decipher, conceals one of the most enigmatic mysteries: the Rohonc Codex. This text doesn't correspond to any known language and has baffled the finest scholars, cryptographers, and linguists for over 200 years. The Rohonc Codex is one of the strangest and most insoluble puzzles in history. It's a riddle, but at the same time, it's much more. Its story begins in Hungary, but its roots reach far deeper into the past. The manuscript is believed to have been created at the beginning of one of the last millennia, and its secret has remained unsolved ever since. When the nobleman, Gustav Bathyány, donated the book to the Hungarian Academy of Sciences, it had long been part of his family archive. However, no one has the slightest idea how it got there. This small book consists of only a few hundred pages, covered in a strange, unknown script. The text is carefully written, left to right, line after line, yet it remains a complete mystery. At first glance, this is an ordinary medieval manuscript, which could contain religious texts or historical chronicles. But there is one enormous problem. No one in the world can read it. The alphabet of this book does not resemble any known writing system, and its symbols are completely unique. The Codex contains over 200 individual signs, significantly more than the number of letters in any known alphabet. And the deeper scholars delve into this book, the clearer it becomes that they are dealing with more than just a cipher, but something far more complex and intricate. For centuries, the Rohonc Codex remains an unsolved mystery, causing only bewilderment. Inside, one can find detailed illustrations. Entire worlds unfold within these pages, sketches depicting mysterious religious rituals, panoramas of medieval cities, and majestic figures resembling holy rulers and armored warriors. Some of these images are remarkably reminiscent of classical Christian iconography, while others bear clear influences from Islamic and even Hindu art. Imagine this strange, almost impossible combination within a single ancient manuscript. This unique work of art raises more questions than it answers. Scenes depicting medieval life and customs suggest that the book was published sometime between the 10th and 13th centuries. However, this strange mixture of religious symbols completely baffles researchers. If this is a text from a Christian community, then why are there so many elements inherent to Eastern traditions? And if it is related to Islam or Hinduism, then what are the Christian crosses doing there? Whatever its true purpose, one thing is certain: this book was not intended to be forgotten. Its creation was the result of painstaking and deliberate work, and each illustration was meticulously verified and placed. Whoever created this manuscript desperately wanted to be understood, but for many centuries, their creation has remained an unsolved mystery. The book is one solid, impenetrable cipher, one that has defied all attempts for 2 centuries. The greatest minds have attempted to crack the Rohonc Code, written in a language not found in any known catalogue. This intellectual battle involved the finest linguists, renowned historians, brilliant mathematicians, and even cryptographers who had cracked military codes. However, all their titanic efforts proved utterly futile. As early as the 19th century, Hungarian scholars made a desperate attempt to decipher the text, consistently comparing it with all known languages of the region: Hungarian, Latin, Romanian, and even ancient Sanskrit. But each attempt inevitably reached a dead end. In the 20th century, experts armed themselves with a new method: frequency analysis, which usually works flawlessly when decoding the most complex ciphers. They tried to identify recurring patterns in the text, but this approach also yielded no results. In the Rohonc Codex, the symbols seem to operate by their own inscrutable laws, defying all known linguistic rules. Yes, some words are repeated and certain signs appear more frequently than others, but the order in which they appear doesn't resemble any known grammatical structure. One gets the eerie impression that the entire book is a single monolithic cipher, fundamentally impossible to decipher. Or perhaps it's simply a brilliant invention, the figment of someone's sophisticated imagination. Nevertheless, over the years, numerous theories have emerged regarding the origins of the Rohonc Codex. Some are based on scraps of historical evidence, while others are more like bold, almost fantastical conjectures. One of the most popular theories holds that the book may be a sacred text, perhaps belonging to a secret Christian sect that history has chosen to pass over in silence. Analysis of religious imagery may indeed point to the existence of a hybrid faith that combined elements of completely different traditions. But if this is indeed the case, then why was its sacred text written in a completely unfamiliar language? Other researchers suggest that what we have before us is a forgotten language or dialect of a tiny community that vanished without a trace many centuries ago, taking with it all its secrets. Some historians believe the codex may be related to an ancient form of writing once used in Hungary. However, even this theory fails to explain its unique and illogical structure. There's a third, far more prosaic theory. The entire book is a grand hoax. Some skeptics believe the Rohonc Codex doesn't contain an ancient secret at all, but is merely a brilliant forgery. Indeed, it contains elements that directly contradict the logic and structure of any natural language. Some researchers suggest that this could have been the result of artificial, deliberate creation. But if so, then the crucial question arises: why? Why would anyone go to such lengths? Perhaps it was simply a prank, or an attempt by a nobleman to demonstrate his knowledge by creating a counterfeit ancient relic. In that case, its creator must have gone to incredible lengths to make his creation as believable as possible. However, this theory has one serious problem. To this day, no one has been able to definitively prove that the Rohonc Codex is a forgery. This enigmatic document remains an unsolved mystery. Consider this. If this manuscript contains no meaning, then why did they spend years composing 448 pages of text and adorning them with hundreds of detailed illustrations? It contains over 200 unique symbols, significantly more than the alphabet of any known language. But most astonishingly, if it is a fraud, then why has no one been able to debunk it for 2 centuries? Despite countless attempts, the Rohonc Codex remains undecipherable. Cutting-edge technology has scanned its pages, computer algorithms have analyzed its structure, but no one has yet been able to decipher a single sentence. It is currently carefully preserved in Budapest, at the Hungarian Academy of Sciences, where it continues to deceive all who dare challenge its mystery. So what is it? The lost language of an ancient people? The secret code of a secret society? Or simply a brilliant joke from the depths of time, long forgotten? Until someone unravels this tangled web, the mystery will remain unsolved. The meaning of the Rohonc Codex remains one of the most complex and intriguing enigmas in human history. However, this is far from the only lost knowledge that continues to fascinate historians. Sometimes the truth is hidden not in a book inscribed with mysterious symbols, but carved in stone and hidden deep underground, far from prying eyes. These silent signs may conceal something capable of upending our entire understanding of ancient civilizations. And if the Rohonc Codex is a mystery locked in a binding, then the White Pyramid in China reveals a new, even greater mystery, just waiting to be revealed. Let's travel to China's Shanxi province. Here, amidst endless plains, lie gigantic pyramidal structures that have sparked heated debate and the most incredible rumors for decades. At first glance, it might seem like they're just ordinary hills or bizarre natural formations. However, a closer look dispels this illusion. It becomes clear that these are man-made structures. These pyramids resemble famous structures discovered in Egypt and Mesoamerica, but unlike them, they remain shrouded in a thick veil of mystery and are virtually unknown to the rest of the world. While the Great Pyramids of Giza attract millions of tourists and explorers from around the world, their Chinese counterparts in Shanxi province remain a mystery to both scholars and ordinary history buffs. These pyramids, towering majestically above the desert landscape, seem deliberately designed to be hidden from prying eyes. Over the centuries, they became covered in dense vegetation, blending with the surrounding nature, and their exact location was virtually forgotten. At the very heart of this mystery lies the so-called White Pyramid. This structure is so gigantic that rumor has it that its size dwarfs even the famous Great Pyramid of Giza. But why was such a unique ancient legacy buried in secrecy? What incredible secrets could lie hidden beneath thick layers of earth and time? The first recorded mention of the White Pyramid was in 1945, at the very end of World War II. A US Air Force pilot named James Gaisman, on a reconnaissance flight over China, spotted from the air a huge gleaming white structure that stood out sharply against the surrounding landscape. In his report, he noted that the structure was made of a material that brightly reflected the sunlight. Perhaps it was some unknown metal or highly polished stone. The structure was unlike anything he had ever seen before. Gaussmann's description was quite detailed. He claimed that the pyramid, with perfect, symmetrical sides, rose to a height of at least 300 meters. If true, its dimensions would have significantly exceeded the Great Pyramid of Giza. After returning to base, he carefully recorded his observations and even made a sketch of this unusual structure. However, his report was soon forgotten and lost in the depths of military archives, relegated to the status of an unconfirmed anomaly. This story might have ended there if only a few years later further evidence hadn't emerged. In 1946, Colonel Maurice Sheehan, another American pilot, claimed that while flying over China, he also saw a massive white pyramid, strikingly similar to the one described earlier. His claim even appeared in the New York Times. The structure in question, he said, was impressive in size, had smooth, sloping sides, and possessed a mystical, almost otherworldly appearance. Despite these compelling eyewitness accounts, no photographic evidence of these flights was ever found. This raised doubts and led many to wonder. Could the experienced pilots have been deceived by an optical illusion, or was information about what they observed deliberately concealed from the general public? However, today we know for certain that this region is indeed home to numerous ancient pyramid-like structures. Most of these monuments remain unexplored, unlike the meticulously studied Egyptian pyramids. The Chinese pyramids, unlike their famous Egyptian counterparts, have long remained in the shadows of history. They have undergone only minimal archaeological excavations and attracted even less public attention. For decades, the Chinese government was extremely reluctant to allow foreign researchers to visit these sites, and many believe this secrecy is no accident. After all, the Chinese pyramids, including the enigmatic White Pyramid, are considered the burial mounds of ancient emperors. They date back to the Western Han Dynasty and possibly even earlier. Like the Egyptian pharaohs, these powerful rulers were buried with countless treasures, surrounded by complex tombs and a multitude of secrets. Hidden deep within these tombs are unique artifacts that, according to ancient belief, were meant to accompany their ruler on his journey to the afterlife. This is precisely what makes them so significant to us. One of the most famous examples is the tomb of Emperor Qin Shi Huang, located near the city of Xi'an. This colossal complex houses the world-famous terracotta army. But despite the tomb being one of the most important archaeological sites on the planet, the emperor's main burial chamber remains untouched. Archaeologists simply dare not open it due to deadly high concentrations of toxic mercury found in the soil around the tomb. Some researchers speculate that this is no accident, but an ancient and elaborate trap left thousands of years ago. The theory arises that this White Pyramid conceals something far more grandiose, a tomb, perhaps built for an emperor whose name has long since been erased from the pages of history. But why have these gigantic structures remained undiscovered? Official explanations boil down to pragmatic and cultural reasons. Chinese authorities cite the fragility of the artifacts, claiming that modern technology is not yet ready for such delicate work, and that any intervention could lead to irreversible consequences. But there is another point of view. Perhaps the true reasons lie deeper in centuries-old traditions and religious prohibitions that forbid disturbing the peace of the ancients. Or perhaps there is something the government is deliberately concealing from the world. Some of the boldest theories suggest that the White Pyramid may be the key to the existence of an incredibly advanced ancient civilization, a civilization that possessed knowledge and technology thousands of years ahead of its time. There were even rumors of extraterrestrial influences, as eyewitnesses described the pyramid's surface as unnaturally smooth, almost mirror-like, reflecting light. While all this remains pure conjecture and speculation, the secrecy with which authorities have shrouded this region only fuels these rumors. Let's look at this area from space. Satellite images leave no doubt. Enormous, perfectly formed pyramidal structures are scattered throughout the region. Some of them have long been engulfed by dense forests, their contours barely discernible beneath the green canopy. Others have blended so seamlessly with the surrounding hills that it's nearly impossible to distinguish man-made artifacts from natural wonders. These images are tantalizing clues, fragments of a great mystery. But without excavations on the ground, without the opportunity to touch these stones, their true meaning will forever remain a mystery. And that's not all. Local residents whose ancestors have lived on these lands for centuries flatly refuse to allow researchers to enter. According to their stories, strange things have been happening in this area for a long time. Some swear they've seen mysterious lights wandering over the tops of ancient burial mounds at night. Others recount legends passed down from generation to generation, lore that strictly forbids anyone from approaching these places. Is this simply ancient folklore, or does something truly lurking behind these walls that modern science cannot explain? A number of historians propose a more mundane, but no less fascinating theory. They believe the pyramids may be repositories of lost knowledge, ancient scrolls, chronicles, and artifacts capable of completely rewriting our understanding of early Chinese civilizations. Hieroglyphs have always been the key to the past, but over thousands of years of wars, turmoil, and political upheaval, countless ancient texts were irretrievably lost. Just imagine if perfectly preserved ancient libraries were found inside these pyramids. This could reveal entire chapters of human history we never even suspected. So, what exactly is the White Pyramid, if it exists as the pilots described? It's one of the greatest mysteries of world archaeology. Despite all the attempts of scientists from around the world to gain access to this closed area, the Chinese government remains firm, strictly restricting any excavations. Perhaps it's about preserving national treasures. Perhaps it's part of a complex government policy. Or perhaps it's due to something that simply defies modern understanding. But one fact is undeniable. The Chinese pyramids exist, and their secrets lie securely buried beneath tons of earth, patiently awaiting their time. And if the White Pyramid truly lies among them, its discovery will be a true shock to all of humanity. It could be the greatest archaeological find in history, or it could be a mystery destined to remain unsolved. But China harbors another mystery, no less astounding. Let's travel to Zhejiang province, where the Longyou Caves lie hidden underground, a colossal underground complex that seems to have no creators. Here, buried deep within the rock, lies a network of gigantic, perfectly carved halls and chambers. Historical records are silent about their construction. Archaeologists have not found a single tool that could have been used in their creation. Their purpose remains a complete mystery. These mysterious man-made caves, known as Longyou, are hidden beneath the hills and are one of the most astonishing archaeological discoveries of modern times. Unlike the natural karst caves that abound in China, these were created entirely by the hand, or not, of man. These are not just tunnels, but colossal underground chambers, carved with astonishing symmetry and decorated with intricate designs. Their engineering precision defies everything we know about ancient technology. But most incredible of all is the complete absence of any mention of them in historical archives. No drawings, no records, no letters that could shed light on their origins. It's eerily as if an entire civilization spent centuries creating this marvel and then simply vanished, taking with them all traces of their existence. And to this day, no one can answer the fundamental questions: who, when, and most importantly, why built these caves. The story of their discovery began completely by chance in 1992, and its protagonist was not a scientist, but an ordinary local farmer. His attention was drawn to several deep ponds in his village, seemingly bottomless. One day, tired of guessing, he decided to drain one of them. Imagine that moment. The water recedes, and instead of a muddy bottom, something incredible appears before his eyes. Giant, perfectly smooth stone walls leading into impenetrable darkness underground. It was unlike anything he had ever seen before. Soon, other villagers joined him, and after draining several more ponds, they discovered an entire underground world. The total area of the discovered complex was approximately 30,000 square meters. To better understand its scale, imagine 4 football fields hidden underground. Each cave was carved from a monolithic sandstone cliff. The ceilings soar to the height of a 10-story building, nearly 30 meters, and their weight is supported by colossal stone columns positioned with perfect precision. The walls, ceilings, and columns are covered with a uniform pattern of parallel grooves, which appear too perfect to be handcrafted. The idea that this majestic and enigmatic complex was created with primitive hand tools seems simply absurd. Archaeologists have calculated that to create these caves, ancient builders had to extract and transport nearly 1 million cubic meters of stone. Assuming they used tools available in ancient China, such work would have required thousands of workers, toiling day and night for decades, if not centuries. But the most astonishing thing is that, despite the complexity of the structure, not a single tool, building material, or the remains of the builders themselves were found at the site. The absence of even the slightest chisel marks suggests an entirely different, multi-stage stone-cutting process. Moreover, during the entire excavation, not a single rock fragment or construction debris was discovered. Where did the 1 million cubic meters of stone disappear to? How was it moved? And why do the caves look as if the builders had abandoned them only yesterday? The precise placement of the holes leaves no doubt. They were part of a single, meticulously planned project, which only adds to the mystery. Perhaps they were part of a larger, as yet undiscovered system. Researchers are puzzled. Some suggest the caves may have served as secret military bases or places for clandestine meetings. Others lean toward the theory that they served some spiritual or ceremonial function associated with long-forgotten beliefs. There's even a hypothesis that they may have been underground palaces or residences for the ruling elite. However, the complete absence of inscriptions, artifacts, or any other traces of life leaves all these suggestions at the level of mere conjecture. One of the most astonishing features of these caves is their incredible state of preservation. Although they may have stood underground for thousands of years, they appear as if they were completed just yesterday. They are believed to date back to the 2nd century BCE, and perhaps even older. Yet their walls show no signs of erosion or collapse, setting them apart from most ancient structures. While other structures crumble with time, these caves stand intact, as if built for eternity. The precision with which they were carved speaks to a profound understanding of engineering, far beyond what was considered possible at the time. Some experts compare these caves to modern underground bunkers, designed to withstand any natural disaster, earthquake, or even military strike. But if they were truly built for protection, then who or what were their creators hiding from? Another aspect that has generated much debate is the striking uniformity of the stone carving traces found in all the caves. These parallel grooves cover the walls, columns, and ceilings, creating a symmetrical, almost decorative pattern. The perfect precision of the carvings suggests the use of some advanced technology. Scientists increasingly conclude that these traces were not left by primitive hand tools. Perhaps some complex mechanism was used, a kind of lost ancient machine or technology completely unknown to modern archaeology. Some researchers even draw parallels with megalithic structures around the world, emphasizing that civilizations separated by thousands of kilometers often demonstrated strikingly similar engineering achievements. Some hypotheses go beyond our familiar world, leading us into the realm of almost fantastical speculation. What if the creators of the Longyou Caves mastered sonic frequency technology? Could they have used ancient vibration devices that literally softened the stone, allowing it to be carved with incredible ease? It sounds like fiction, but let's not jump to conclusions. Modern scientific experiments have already confirmed that sound waves can indeed influence the strength and structure of materials. Perhaps the ancient architects possessed knowledge long lost to our civilization. Perhaps they used sonic vibrations or other technologies to make the stone pliable, facilitating the process of massive excavations. And although this hypothesis seems improbable, it, oddly enough, explains much of what we see in these mysterious halls. Researchers also suggest that the caves could have served. Imagine that these gigantic underground chambers were deliberately flooded. Perhaps they served as ancient reservoirs, storing vast reserves of water. Or perhaps their smooth, flooded floors served as giant mirrors, reflecting the starry sky for astronomical observations. Channels dug into the stone, clearly intended to channel water flows, only add new layers to this puzzle. Archaeologists are still puzzled by the main question. Was this flooding part of the original plan? And what role exactly did water play in this grandiose complex? Despite years of meticulous excavation, these caves hold their secrets tightly. Not a single bone, not a single piece of pottery, not even a line of text has been found here that could connect this monumental structure to any known civilization or specific purpose. This complete absence of historical traces is especially strange when one considers the meticulous written records of ancient China. How could such a massive project requiring colossal effort simply vanish from history? Why has not a single legend, not a single historical document mentioned it in a country with such a rich and detailed heritage? An event as monumental as the carving of these enormous underground cathedrals from rock was bound to leave a deep scar in the collective memory of the people. But such a trace has yet to be discovered. The mystery remains unsolved, and interest in this mystical place among researchers and travelers is only growing. Some believe the key to the mystery may lie in as yet unexplored parts of the caves, behind blind walls or in the most remote blocked passages. If secret rooms truly exist, they could finally shed light on who built these caves and why. Archaeologists have even proposed using powerful ground-penetrating radar to scan the surrounding hills in the hopes of finding hidden voids that would help unravel this tangle of mysteries. But for now, the caves remain deathly silent, and their creators seem to have vanished forever into the mists of time. Now let's travel thousands of kilometers to the heart of Alexandria, Egypt, where another ancient mystery has lain dormant underground for centuries. In 2018, right beneath the bustling streets of the modern city, a discovery occurred that left the entire world breathless. Construction workers digging a pit suddenly stumbled upon a gigantic black sarcophagus, sealed tightly for over 2,000 years. Unlike the lavishly decorated tombs of the pharaohs, this sarcophagus was completely black, without a single hieroglyph or drawing, preserved in its eerie, pristine purity. It was the largest intact sarcophagus ever found in Alexandria. No one could even guess what lay within. The boldest minds hoped that it contained the remains of Alexander the Great himself, while others were inclined to believe it belonged to some powerful but forgotten nobleman. However, when archaeologists uncovered it, the reality turned out to be far stranger and more frightening than anyone could have imagined. Alexandria has always been a city shrouded in mystery. Founded by Alexander the Great in 331 BC, it has hidden much of its ancient history beneath the foundations of modern buildings and the waves of the Mediterranean Sea. But every now and then, something seemingly buried forever in oblivion rises to the surface. Such was the case with the Black Sarcophagus, a sensational discovery made during routine excavation work in the Sidi Gaba area, renowned for its archaeological treasures. Workers stumbled upon something solid and enormous. Before them lay a colossal coffin, its dimensions staggering, nearly 3 meters long, 1.5 meters wide, and over 2 meters high. It was carved from a single block of black granite and sealed with an incredibly thick layer of mortar, a sure sign it hadn't been disturbed since ancient times. Given its colossal size and the titanic effort expended in its construction, archaeologists were certain someone of extraordinary importance must be inside. The most daring hypothesis floated. It could be the long-lost tomb of Alexander the Great himself, whose final resting place remains one of history's greatest mysteries. Since the founding of the city named after him, many believed the great commander rested somewhere here, beneath these streets. However, there was another, more sinister theory that made superstitious people shudder. Legends of ancient tomb curses persist to this day. For centuries, stories have been passed down by word of mouth about the terrible misfortunes that befell those who dared disturb the peace of the dead. From the infamous curse of Pharaoh Tutankhamun to a string of unexplained deaths linked to other archaeological finds, macabre rumors abounded. Some locals even begged not to open the sarcophagus, fearing it would unleash some ancient and powerful evil. But despite all the warnings, the world waited in eager anticipation. The chance to make a major historical discovery was too great to pass up. Ignoring their superstitious fears, the team of archaeologists set to work, but the task proved incredibly difficult. The sarcophagus lid was monstrously heavy, weighing over 15 tons, and lifting it required powerful construction equipment. When the lid was finally removed, the air instantly filled with an unbearable, suffocating stench. Instead of the expected treasures or a perfectly preserved mummy, the team saw something truly disturbing. The sarcophagus was filled to the brim with a murky, viscous liquid of a terrifying red hue. Floating in this crimson ooze were the skeletal remains of 3 people. It turned out that this liquid was a hellish mixture of sewage, which had seeped inside for centuries, and the decomposition products of human bodies transformed into a dark, fetid sludge. The skeletons belonged to 2 men and 1 woman. But who were they? The question hung in the air. Particularly puzzling was the complete absence of any inscriptions or funerary artifacts, which was completely atypical for a tomb of this scale. Typically, Egyptian burials were filled with objects intended to accompany the deceased into the afterlife. Here, however, there was nothing that could shed light on the identities of the deceased. This lack of any clues only deepened the mystical atmosphere surrounding the discovery. Who were these 3? Why were they buried together in a huge unmarked granite cyst? And why was it so carefully and permanently sealed? Since the tomb's opening, a plethora of wild theories have emerged. Some claimed the red liquid inside possessed supernatural powers, even leading to online petitions from people seeking to drink it to gain mystical powers. Others believed the burial was part of some dark ancient ritual, perhaps a failed attempt at mummification, or even a form of cruel punishment. More rational theories suggest that the buried individuals were high-ranking figures, possibly military leaders or members of a noble family. The size of the tomb clearly indicated their high status, but the lack of inscriptions and grave goods suggests their burial was hasty and unconventional. One theory holds that they may have died suddenly, as a result of an accident, an epidemic, or a bloody battle, requiring such an emergency burial. It's also possible that the sarcophagus was misused. Perhaps it was originally intended for a single, very important person, but due to circumstances, it was used as a mass grave. Despite all the hypotheses, there are still no definitive answers. The skeletons were removed for detailed study, and the sarcophagus itself was sent to a museum. Although it did not contain the remains of Alexander the Great, this discovery became one of the most enigmatic and intriguing in modern archaeology. This tomb can rightfully be considered one of the most mysterious discoveries in modern history. Its size, macabre contents, and unanswered questions make this discovery truly unique. However, Egypt isn't the only place where the earth holds amazing artifacts. A library in the Czech Republic holds an ancient relic so astonishing that, according to legend, it was created with the help of a higher power. Its name is the Codex Gigas, or Giant Codex. Considered one of the most mysterious manuscripts of the Middle Ages, it contains not only the complete text of the Bible, but also numerous other treatises. This book is so enormous and unique that for centuries people believed it was beyond the power of a mere mortal to create. The Codex Gigas is shrouded in a dark legend, claiming it was written with the assistance of the devil himself. Its size, weight, and contents make it absolutely exceptional. The book stands almost a meter tall and weighs over 75 kilograms, as much as a grown man. Its binding is made of wood and covered in leather, but that's not what makes it so mysterious. The Codex Gigas contains the complete Latin Bible, historical chronicles, medical texts, and even rituals for exorcising demons. And all of this was written by a single person in impeccable calligraphy, which adds even more mystical charm to the book. According to legend, the Devil's Bible was created in the early 13th century in a Benedictine monastery in what is now the Czech Republic. However, its author and why this work has captivated historians and paranormal enthusiasts remain a mystery. Medieval sources tell a grim tale. The Codex Gigas was written by a monk who had committed a terrible sin. As punishment, he was sentenced to a gruesome death, immurement alive within the monastery wall. In utter despair, eager to avoid a painful death, the monk begged for mercy. He vowed to create the greatest manuscript ever written, a book that would bring glory to his monastery and contain all human knowledge. And he vowed to complete this monumental work in just one night. The task seemed impossible, even for a team of copyists working for years. When midnight struck, the monk realized he was doomed. He wouldn't make it. Faced with his terrible fate, he called upon the only being he believed could help him. According to legend, the monk who created the Codex Gigas made a deal with Satan himself. he offered his immortal soul in exchange for help completing the book. Imagine, dawn in a medieval monastery cell. On the table lies a colossal tome, just completed. According to a terrifying legend, the creation of this masterpiece took just one night. A night when a monk, condemned to terrible punishment, struck a deal with the Prince of Darkness himself. And here it is, the result, the Codex Gigas, written with calligraphic precision and designed with diabolical perfection. As a sign of this unholy pact, the monk dedicated an entire page to his new patron, creating a terrifying, life-size portrait of the devil himself. This story sounds like a grim fairy tale, but is there even a grain of truth in it? Let's move from the world of legend to the world of fact. One of the most inexplicable aspects of the Codex Gigas is the striking uniformity of its handwriting. Graphologists, having examined each of the hundreds of pages under a microscope, came to a stunning conclusion. The entire book, from first to last letter, was written by a single person. There are no visible variations in writing style, pressure, or flow. The ink flows smoothly and continuously across the parchment. By the most conservative modern estimates, creating a manuscript of such colossal size by hand would have taken a scribe at least 25, perhaps even 30 years of continuous, grueling labor. However, chemical analysis of the ink and parchment indicates that the manuscript could have been created in an incredibly short time. And this is only the first of the mysteries. Let's take a look inside. What do these pages conceal? Besides canonical biblical texts, they contain sections that seem completely out of place in a holy book. We see detailed instructions on exorcising evil spirits, collections of ancient medical recipes, and even entire treatises on demonology, describing the hierarchy of hell. Some researchers believe that this explosive mixture of the divine and the forbidden is a direct hint at something more than simple monastic zeal. And of course, the highlight of the show, the thing that gives this book its sinister aura, is the very same portrait of the devil. This drawing has no parallel in any religious artwork of the era. Here, Satan appears before us in an unnatural, contorted pose, with clawed hands, a forked tongue, and glowing red eyes. Some see this image as an illustration of the biblical text, others that the drawing itself exudes evil energy, serving as a window into the underworld. The text, which, according to legend, the monk left behind, contained a direct warning of the terrible price he paid for his creation. But if we set aside the mysticism and assume that the book was not created by supernatural forces, how could one man have accomplished such a monumental task? There's a theory that the monk who created the Codex was more than just a scribe. He may have suffered from a rare mental condition we would today call hypergraphia, an uncontrollable, obsessive urge to write. Some scholars hypothesize that he may have voluntarily locked himself away in complete isolation from the world, devoting his entire life to the creation of this single work. Another theory holds that a whole team of monks worked on the book, and subsequent editors carefully tidied up the manuscript to create the illusion of a single author. However, this theory collapses when confronted with the facts. The pages show no traces of corrections, the use of different inks, or the handwriting styles that would inevitably remain after a collaborative effort. This again leads us to believe that the monk truly did work alone. Perhaps, over the course of decades, guided by some unknown, powerful force, he created his masterpiece and only work. Over its long and dark history, the book has endured incredible trials. It was stolen, attempts were made to destroy it, it was transported from one country to another like a great treasure or a cursed artifact. Ultimately, it ended up in the Royal Library of Sweden, where it underwent a baptism of fire. According to eyewitness accounts, when a monstrous fire broke out in the castle in the 17th century, someone in despair simply threw the gigantic book out of a window to save it from the flames. The colossal tome plummeted to the ground from a great height, but was virtually undamaged, while most of the priceless library burned to the ground. Many saw this as a sign that some dark force was protecting its creation. Today, the Devil's Bible is kept at the National Library of Sweden in specially designed conditions, protecting it from the ravages of time. Scholars continue to scan and study its pages, but the manuscript still jealously guards its secrets, which may never be fully revealed. Who really wrote this book? How did they do it? And why is an entire page dedicated to the devil? These questions remain unanswered, but not all ancient secrets are written down on paper. Some are imprinted in the earth itself, buried under layers of sand and time, patiently waiting to be discovered. We are transported from the mystery of a single book to the enigma of an entire people, whose culture flourished for millennia and then suddenly vanished, leaving virtually no trace behind. The disappearance of the Clovis people remains one of history's greatest unsolved mysteries. This is not a question of a single artifact, but of an entire civilization that vanished into oblivion. The Clovis culture is one of the most enigmatic chapters in the prehistoric record of North America. Dating back approximately 13,000 years, it is one of the oldest civilizations on the continent. Imagine these people, skilled Stone Age hunters, renowned for their deadly, masterfully crafted spearheads. Their culture flourished across vast territories, but then, at its peak, suddenly ended, leaving only questions for posterity. Their flint-hewn tools have been found throughout North America. The quality of these artifacts is so high that it suggests the existence of a complex society with advanced technology, trade routes, and a profound understanding of the natural world. Archaeologists believe the Clovis people were among the first settlers of the Americas, arriving across a land bridge from Siberia. However, their sudden disappearance has given rise to numerous theories, none of which provide a definitive answer. The Clovis culture simply vanishes from the archaeological record, leaving behind a vacuum. These people first came to light in the early 20th century, when unique spearheads were found in Clovis, New Mexico, giving the entire culture its name. These tools lay buried alongside the bones of Ice Age giants, mammoths, and ancient bison. This was direct evidence that the Clovis culture was fearless and skilled hunters of the largest game of its time. During the last Ice Age, they were at the top of the food chain. Archaeological excavations have uncovered numerous sites of them in what is now the United States, Canada, and even parts of South America. This suggests that this was not just a small, isolated group, but a widespread and thriving society. And then, approximately 12,800 years ago, something inexplicable happened. Artifacts from this culture suddenly and completely vanished. There are no signs of war, invasion, or genocide. There is no evidence of mass famine or epidemic that could have led to the collapse of civilization. It seems as if these people simply vanished, leaving behind only stone tools scattered across the continent and the bones of the animals they killed. This sudden disappearance has haunted archaeologists for decades. So, what could have happened? One of the most popular and dramatic theories is known as the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis. It proposes that an asteroid or cometary nucleus struck North America approximately 12,800 years ago. Imagine the apocalypse. A fireball slams into the ice sheet, causing a monstrous explosion. The shockwave and thermal pulse trigger massive wildfires that engulf the entire continent. Millions of tons of ash and dust are ejected into the atmosphere, blocking the sun and triggering a sharp cooling, a return to the Ice Age. This climate collapse could have destroyed their traditional food sources, depriving the Clovis people of the ability to hunt large animals and thus completely destroying their way of life. Scientists find evidence of this catastrophe in the form of a thin, black layer of soot found at many archaeological sites. This layer contains vast quantities of nanodiamonds, microscopic crystals that, according to some researchers, could only have formed under extreme temperatures and pressures caused by an extraterrestrial impact. If this hypothesis is correct, the Clovis culture was one of the first human societies to be wiped off the face of the Earth by a global cosmic catastrophe. However, there is another possibility. What if the Clovis people didn't die out, but simply adapted? Some archaeologists believe they were forced to radically change their way of life after the disappearance of the Ice Age giants, mammoths and mastodons. Rather than die out along with their prey, they may have switched to smaller animals and developed entirely new survival strategies. This adaptation may have led to the emergence of new cultures, traces of which appear in archaeological finds immediately after the disappearance of the Clovis people. If this theory is correct, they didn't die out but evolved, leaving behind their old traditions and evolving into something entirely new. But there's a more disturbing theory. According to it, the Clovis people were wiped out by some unknown yet swift catastrophe. Researchers point out that around the same time the Clovis people disappeared, mammoths, saber-toothed tigers, and giant ground sloths also vanished from the continent. It was a time of great extinction. Something or someone methodically cleared the American continent, eliminating the largest predators, the largest herbivores, and the most successful hunters from the historical stage. It could have been an unknown disease, fatal competition with other human groups, or a series of environmental disasters. Something deadly swept across this land, erasing them from history forever, and they did it with incredible, astonishing speed. However, if we take a closer look, cracks begin to appear in this seemingly coherent picture, and far more mysterious facts come to light. With each passing year, more and more evidence accumulates, clearly indicating that people could have roamed the American expanses long before the Clovis artists arrived. Let's travel, for example, to such distant places as Monteverde in Chile or the Galt site in Texas. Here, beneath the earth, paleontologists have discovered artifacts thousands of years older than the oldest finds associated with Clovis. This discovery, like a hammer blow, shatters the long-held belief that they were the first to colonize the Americas. But if other tribes already lived here, then who were the Clovis people themselves? Were they some isolated, unique cultural group that emerged out of nowhere? Or perhaps they were just one wave of a much larger migration, whose true history has been forever erased by time. Some scientists are putting forward an even bolder hypothesis. What if the Clovis culture is not the beginning, but the end? Remnants of an even more ancient and powerful civilization that existed long before them. Each of these mysteries could be the key to understanding how they lived, what they believed, and what legacy they left behind. And now, on the threshold of the last great ice age, these mysterious people known as Clovis suddenly vanish from the pages of history. The reasons for their demise remain one of the greatest mysteries, giving rise to countless theories. The fate of the Clovis culture is a true archaeological mystery. What happened to them? Were they wiped out by a sudden climate change? Were they victims of an asteroid strike or some other cosmic catastrophe? Or perhaps they didn't disappear altogether, but simply vanished among other, more numerous peoples, leaving behind only ghostly traces of their former glory. The truth lies buried deep in the soils of ancient America. The Clovis people vanished, leaving behind only their skillfully crafted tools, mammoth bones, and endless questions about their fate. Did they fall victim to a sudden cataclysm, or did their culture slowly fade into obscurity, their descendants intermingling with later tribes? The past holds countless stories of civilizations that flourished to incredible heights and then vanished without a trace, leaving us with only a handful of clues to unravel their mysteries. And sometimes what they leave behind isn't just the ruins of cities or stone tools. It's something that challenges our understanding of the ancient world. Imagine dense, impenetrable tropical forests and ancient riverbanks. Here, in the heart of Costa Rica, you can stumble upon dozens of majestic stone spheres, half buried in the earth. But these are not simply rough boulders sculpted by nature. Before us are the handiwork of man, meticulously crafted and possessing near-perfect symmetry. Some weigh over 15 tons. And to this day, no one can say with certainty who created these mysterious artifacts, how they were transported to this location, and, most importantly, why they were needed in the first place. These astonishing objects, known as the Costa Rican stone spheres, began their modern history in the 1930s. At the time, the American company United Fruit was conducting a large-scale clearing of land for banana plantations in the Dikis River Delta. It was during this work that workers stumbled upon these astonishing stone spheres. Some were perfect spheres, others had minor damage, but all were striking in their size and near-perfect shape. Scattered throughout the region, these objects looked as if they had been transported from another planet. Some were grouped together, forming precise geometric patterns, while others stood alone, buried under centuries-old layers of soil. For a long time, workers were at a loss as to what to make of these finds. Some considered them bizarre creations of nature, while others were convinced that untold treasures lay hidden within. As a result of this enthusiasm, several of the unique spheres were mercilessly blown up with dynamite. Unfortunately, there was only a solid stone core inside. As news of this extraordinary discovery spread around the world, archaeologists descended on the jungle to study the mysterious spheres. They were unlike anything scientists had previously found in the region. These objects ranged in size from a few centimeters to gigantic spheres over 2.5 meters in diameter. Many were crafted with such incredible precision that they seemed almost mathematically perfect. This fact made their origin even more astonishing. The material they were made from, granodiorite, an extremely hard volcanic rock, does not naturally occur in the area. This meant only one thing: their creators must have quarried the stone elsewhere, processed it, and then transported it across vast distances, which required incredible engineering expertise and sophisticated tools. So, who is behind the creation of these astonishing artifacts? One theory is that they were crafted by the Diki culture, an ancient civilization that flourished in Costa Rica from approximately 700 to 1530 AD. The Diki people were renowned for their mastery of metalworking, ceramics, and stone carving. However, not a single ancient legend hints that they possessed the technology to create such precise and massive objects. The reason and, more importantly, the method for creating such gigantic and perfectly round spheres remain an unsolved mystery. These relics bear no inscriptions, and the civilization that created them disappeared before Europeans could make contact. All that remains are these silent stone witnesses, devoid of any identifying marks. There are many theories attempting to explain the purpose of these spheres. Some researchers suggest they may have served as sophisticated astronomical instruments for observing the movements of the sun, moon, and stars. Others believe they were an integral part of religious rites, possibly symbolizing deities or celestial bodies. Still others see them as symbols of power and authority. These objects may also have served as status markers, indicating the homes of chieftains, priests, or other high-ranking members of society. Some scholars believe the spheres served as astronomical markers linked to the movements of the sun and stars. And while the placement of some of the spheres could indeed confirm their connection to celestial events without written evidence, this remains merely a speculative hypothesis. Other theories posit that the spheres held deep spiritual or ritual significance. They may have symbolized the cosmos or the eternal cycles of life and death. Some local legends describe them as thunderstones hurled from the heavens by the gods to protect the earth. Others believe they were part of a now-lost network of so-called ley lines, energy channels that ancient civilizations supposedly used in their rituals. The civilization that supposedly created these spheres remains shrouded in mystery. One of the most intriguing theories is that they served for navigation. Some researchers believe the spheres may have been part of an ancient navigation system, helping travelers navigate their surroundings. The mystery is compounded by the fact that archaeologists have been unable to find any stone-cutting tools or quarries that could shed light on the process of their creation. Granodiorite is an extremely hard rock. Even with modern tools, shaping it into perfectly spherical shapes would have been an incredibly difficult and labor-intensive task. Some scientists speculate that the people of the Dikis civilization may have used a clever combination of fire and cold water to weaken the rock, then gradually carved it into the desired shape with stone tools. But even this theory cannot fully explain how they were able to create such perfect spheres. The question of how they were able to move these multi-ton boulders over long distances is also puzzling. Some spheres were found in groups, while others appear to have been placed separately. The mysterious stone spheres were found several kilometers from the nearest known granodiorite deposit. This may indicate that they were rolled, dragged, or transported on enormous wooden platforms without wheels or draft animals. Moving such massive stones would have required the incredibly coordinated efforts of hundreds of people and a deep understanding of the laws of physics. The lack of clear answers has given rise to a multitude of hypotheses, some of which may seem pure fantasy. When science reaches a dead end, some researchers suggest that the mysterious spheres could have been created by alien beings using highly advanced technology. Numerous stone spheres found in Costa Rica continue to captivate minds. Some researchers believe they may have been part of an ancient temple complex, while others believe these unusual objects may be the remains of an ancient civilization that existed long before the advent of humans and left no other traces behind. Some also believe they were artificially created, although these ideas are outside the realm of formal archaeology. But they only highlight how little we actually know about these ancient artifacts. Over time, many of them were moved from their original locations and now adorn museums, private collections, or simply lie in the yards of farmers who are unaware of their historical value. This makes it incredibly difficult to study their original locations and adds another layer of mystery to their true purpose. Today, some of the remaining objects are protected as UNESCO World Heritage Sites. However, many have been irretrievably lost or damaged. Despite decades of research, the stone spheres of Costa Rica remain an unsolved mystery. Whether they were symbols of power, celestial maps, or something else entirely, we may never know. The Bay of Bengal coast was once a bustling trading center and one of the most important ports of the ancient world. This city boasts numerous stunning architectural monuments, including majestic temples and opulent palaces. However, many have been irretrievably lost or destroyed by the relentless passage of time. While we can only speculate about the reasons for the disappearance of these great structures, one thing is certain. They demonstrate a stunning level of craftsmanship and serve as a stark reminder that even the most powerful civilizations can crumble to dust. This is a testament to the extraordinary skill and ingenuity of ancient architects, compelling us to ponder what life was like in those distant times. But Mahabalipuram is far from the only place on Earth that holds such secrets. Scattered across our planet are the ruins of cities and temples that disappeared long ago, swallowed by the merciless sea, buried under thick layers of earth, or simply erased from memory by history itself. Let's travel to the southeastern coast of India. Here, among the fishing villages, a wondrous legend is passed down from generation to generation. It tells of a magnificent complex of temples built with such unearthly beauty that the gods themselves, blinded by their splendor, cast them into the ocean in a fit of envy. This is the great mystery of the 7 pagodas of Mahabalipuram. This story is a fusion of ancient engineering marvels and modern discoveries that may finally prove the truth of the ancient legend. The city itself, also known as Mamallapuram, is an ancient historical center in the Indian state of Tamil Nadu, nestled on the shores of the Bay of Bengal. It was once a bustling place, a vital trading hub and major seaport. Numerous architectural treasures remain, including majestic temples and the remains of palaces. However, countless other structures have been irretrievably lost or destroyed by the relentless passage of time. And while we can only speculate about the precise catastrophe that wiped them off the face of the earth, one thing remains perfectly clear. These structures were created by geniuses. They demonstrate a transcendent level of craftsmanship that leaves us awestruck imagining the lives and customs of the people of that distant era. But Mahabalipuram isn't the only lost place that captures our imagination. Hidden in various corners of the planet are cities and shrines that have vanished beneath the waves, been buried under meters of soil, or simply lost in the mists of time. Today, the Bay of Bengal is famous for its stunning temples, literally carved from monolithic rock. These ancient colossi are over 1,300 years old, and they still impress us with their intricate carvings and grandiose forms. Built during the Pallava dynasty in the 6th and 7th centuries CE, these temples are renowned for their unique architectural style and the incredible skill of their builders. However, for centuries, local fishermen and seafarers told a completely different, far more mysterious story. The story of the 7 pagodas of Mahabalipuram buried beneath the dark waters of the Bay of Bengal. Legend has it that 7 majestic temples once stood on this very spot, their towers soaring heavenward, dazzling all who beheld them with their splendor. But the gods, enraged by such mortal insolence, sent a monstrous flood down the coast, engulfing everything, leaving only a single temple above ground. Today, we can only see this lone survivor, the Temple of Shore. This grandiose structure stands at the very edge of the land where the earth meets the boundless ocean. Over the centuries, its stone walls have been tirelessly eroded by salty winds and sea waves. But has it always stood here alone? Historians have debated for years whether this legend has any basis in fact, or whether it is merely a beautiful tale passed down by word of mouth. But in 2004, everything changed. One of the most devastating tsunamis in human history struck the Indian Ocean. Giant waves devastated coastal areas, forever changing their landscape. And then, as the storm receded from the shores of Mahabalipuram, something incredible happened. Enormous stone structures, columns, carved blocks, and what looked like the foundations of ancient temples emerged from beneath the water. For the first time in centuries, eyewitnesses described massive walls and sculptures with their intricate carvings, seemingly unharmed by time. This discovery, like a lightning bolt, attracted the attention of archaeologists and oceanographers from around the world. Underwater exploration began immediately to confirm the sensational findings, and what lay hidden in the ocean depths turned out to be a truly astonishing treasure. Diving expedition after diving expedition delved into the mystery. A thorough examination of the seabed revealed numerous sunken structures, some of which formed orderly structures resembling streets or squares. Stone blocks, skillfully carved artifacts, and clear traces of construction left no doubt. This site had once housed a vast settlement or an entire temple complex, now completely engulfed by the ocean. Some of these ancient structures were found just a few hundred meters from the shoreline, securely hidden beneath thick layers of sand and seaweed. This discovery caused a sensation in the archaeological community. The idea that entire cities could lie underwater ceased to be just a myth and became a proven reality. One of the leading hypotheses about the fate of the lost temples is that they were destroyed by a powerful natural disaster. Perhaps it was an ancient tsunami or a catastrophic rise in sea levels, which slowly but inexorably reclaimed the land from human settlements over the centuries. Given Mahabalipuram's location along the Bay of Bengal, the region has always been extremely vulnerable to such events. Some experts even believe that the temples weren't destroyed all at once, but gradually sank beneath the waves year after year, leaving only the coastal Shora temple as a sad reminder of their former glory. There is another, more mystical theory. It links the lost temples to the mythical continent of Kumari Kandam, which, according to ancient legends, once lay in the Indian Ocean. Ancient Tamil tales tell of a highly advanced civilization that was swallowed by the great waters, a story strikingly reminiscent of the myth of Atlantis. Although there is no solid evidence of such a continent's existence, these legends continue to captivate, and some researchers speculate that the lost temples of Mahabalipuram may have been just part of a much larger architectural complex. There's a third, more pragmatic theory. Perhaps the temples were simply abandoned intentionally. Ruling dynasties changed, new rulers shifted their attention to other cities and capitals, and the majestic structures on the ocean shore gradually fell into disrepair. Then, natural disasters such as storms and earthquakes, combined with a slow rise in sea levels, completed the devastation, damaging and partially burying 6 of the 7 legendary pagodas. However, one of the most intriguing aspects of this mystery remains the fact that some submerged structures may still be intact, hidden from the eyes of modern researchers. Research conducted after the 2004 tsunami only hinted at what might lie beneath the surface. But since then, shifting sands and powerful tides have once again obscured much of this mystery. Underwater archaeology is still evolving and new. Even more astonishing discoveries may await us in the future. Technologies such as sonar mapping and remotely operated underwater vehicles will one day help us unravel the mysteries of these lost temples. Some scientists speculate that future expeditions may uncover the entire foundations of ancient sanctuaries, submerged bas-reliefs, and perhaps even ancient inscriptions that will shed light on the creators of these magnificent structures. These structures, once majestic and vibrant, now belong to history. They were lost, and only one temple on the shore remains, a silent guardian of the secrets of its vanished brethren. Yet the discovery of these underwater ruins has forever changed our perception of this place. What was once considered merely a beautiful myth now has real, solid foundations. The ocean holds far more stories about our past than we could ever have imagined. And Mahabalipuram isn't the only place where ancient ruins have been claimed by the sea. For centuries, our world has witnessed entire cities swallowed by mighty waves, leaving behind only scattered remains and legends whispered across Europe's shores. In the murky depths of the North Sea lies evidence of an even greater loss. Before us lies a stretch of land that once connected Britain to mainland Europe. It was teeming with life and home to thousands of people, until one day it vanished forever. This is the story of Doggerland, an entire civilization lost in time and buried beneath the tides. Here people once thrived, until nature itself destroyed their world. Tens of thousands of years ago, our planet looked completely different. A vast portion of Earth's water was trapped in gigantic ice sheets, causing sea levels to drop significantly. This exposed vast territories now hidden underwater. One of these lost lands was Doggerland, a vast landmass that once connected modern-day Great Britain, the Netherlands, Denmark, and Germany. And it wasn't just a barren plain. What we see is a thriving ecosystem, with hills, valleys, and Europe's largest rivers flowing into the ocean. For many millennia, this land served as home to prehistoric people. Tribes of hunters and gatherers followed migrating herds of mammoths and reindeer, fished in the deep rivers, and harvested the bounty of nature from its fertile shores. However, this land was soon doomed, swallowed by the frigid waters of the North Sea. The first hints of Doggerland's existence came not from historical manuscripts or ancient maps, but from the nets of fishermen who had plied the North Sea for centuries. They regularly brought up mysterious artifacts, stone tools, bones, and even ancient human skulls recovered from the seabed. Some of these finds belonged to extinct giants like woolly mammoths and saber-toothed tigers, while others belonged to humans. These finds served as irrefutable proof that humans once inhabited this submerged world. Imagine a lost world, an entire continent buried beneath the cold, turbulent waters of the North Sea. For centuries, its existence was merely a vague notion, a legend, until in the 20th century, scientists began to understand the enormity of the mystery they were uncovering. Let's travel to the seafloor where, thanks to sonar mapping and underwater archaeology, an incredible scene unfolds. An entire prehistoric landscape, frozen in time. Here, in the eternal darkness, sonar beams trace the ghostly outlines of a long-vanished land. We see the traces of ancient waves, the beds of mighty rivers and rolling hills. The contours of what were once thriving settlements emerge. This was Doggerland, a fertile, vibrant land that connected Britain with continental Europe. But the vast majority of its inhabitants did not survive the coming catastrophe. Now, in its place lies a lifeless abyss. But one day, an event of colossal power changed everything forever. As the Great Ice Age drew to a close, the planet began to warm. The gigantic glaciers that had frozen the north began to melt, releasing incredible volumes of water. Sea levels began to rise inexorably, and the sea slowly but surely encroached on the coast, forcing ancient people and animals to retreat ever further inland. However, about 8,000 years ago, a tragedy struck that sealed the fate of Doggerland with a single blow. This event went down in history as the Storegga landslide. One of the largest underwater landslides ever recorded occurred off the coast of modern-day Norway. An unimaginable mass of seabed, the size of an entire country, broke loose and collapsed into the abyss, generating a mega tsunami. Imagine a wall of water over 9 meters high, the size of a 3-story building, roaring toward the shores of Doggerland. It crashed onto the coast with the fury of the elements, engulfing entire villages, inundating dense forests, and wiping out entire communities. What had been a broad land bridge transformed into a chain of islands in a matter of hours, and then disappeared completely beneath the waves. For the people who called these lands home, it was an apocalypse. Some may have escaped, fleeing in panic to the higher ground that would later become Britain or Europe. But most were doomed. They were consumed by the ocean's incredible power. Their homes, their lives, their entire world destroyed in a matter of hours. Doggerland vanished from the map forever, its remains now slumbering in the depths of the sea. The North Sea is a harsh and dangerous place for archaeologists. Its waters are murky and the seabed is constantly shifting due to powerful currents. Yet, from time to time, it reveals its secrets. Amazing fine surface, stone tools of ancient people, fragments of wooden structures, and even fossilized footprints left on the former coastline. In 2018, a real breakthrough occurred. Researchers using advanced sonar equipment discovered irrefutable evidence of ancient settlements beneath a thick layer of silt. Some scientists are hopeful, speculating that entire villages and even burial sites, perfectly preserved in the oxygen-free environment, may lie beneath. However, the main question remains: will we ever be able to fully explore this sunken world? Unlike other lost civilizations, Doggerland is hidden beneath shallow, yet incredibly dangerous waters, where storms and currents pose a deadly threat. Modern technology makes underwater exploration extremely difficult and expensive. Much of Doggerland remains inaccessible, a ghostly landscape buried beneath the North Sea. But the legend of Doggerland lives on. Some researchers believe it was this real-life catastrophe that inspired later myths. It's likely that tales of a lost, prosperous land passed down orally for generations, eventually evolved into the world-famous legend of Atlantis. Today, Doggerland is the subject of speculation, a place that certainly existed, but to which we may never be able to return. The discovery of this sunken civilization clearly demonstrates how many pages of our history lie buried beneath the waves. Entire worlds, the existence of which we never even suspected, have vanished under the onslaught of time and the omnipotent forces of nature. And yet, sometimes the story doesn't end with a sinking into the depths of the sea. Sometimes a Viking artifact, an object that shouldn't have existed after lying buried for 1,000 years, suddenly appears in the most unexpected place. It's been waiting for its moment to completely change our understanding of what we thought we knew for sure. And now, before us, stands a remarkable find. If authentic, it could fundamentally shake our understanding of who truly first discovered North America. Fast forward to 1957. An enthusiastic archaeologist named Mel Green makes a startling discovery at an ancient Native American settlement in Nuck Point, Maine. Among thousands of stone tools, arrowheads, and pottery fragments, his hand brushes against a small worn coin. At first glance, it looks like an ordinary old piece of metal, of no value. However, when the artifact falls into the hands of experts for detailed analysis, the results are stunning. This coin was not European colonial. It bore no connection to the first settlers. Instead, it turned out to be Norwegian, minted during the reign of King Olaf Cyrus, a Viking who ruled Norway from 1067 to 1093 AD. In other words, this metal disc was over 1,000 years old. excavations in North America revealed an artifact that was undoubtedly Viking. This discovery sparked a flurry of questions and theories. The official version of history holds that Norse explorers, including the legendary Leif Erikson, may indeed have briefly visited parts of modern-day Canada around 1000 AD. They even founded a short-lived settlement at Longyou Meadows. However, there are no records of Vikings ever reaching as far south as Maine, much less leaving coins there. The discovery of a medieval Norse artifact buried at an ancient Native American camp has sparked several theories. One of them, the most daring, suggests that Vikings traveled much further south than previously thought, and may even have set foot on the lands of modern-day Maine. If true, this theory dramatically expands our knowledge of the Viking presence in the New World and raises new questions about early European contact with North America. Did they establish settlements here? The question remains open, but this small coin offers hope for new, even more significant discoveries. Perhaps Norse merchants secretly established trading posts along the coast and conducted trade with native tribes in the far southern regions. There's another, less dramatic hypothesis. According to it, the coin could have been obtained through trade between the Indians themselves. The site where the artifact was found belonged to the Penobscot people, experienced traders whose routes stretched for hundreds of kilometers. It's entirely possible that the coin found at Knock Point wasn't left there by a Viking, but simply traveled along ancient trade routes, changing hands. However, not everyone is ready to believe that the coin is a genuine Viking artifact. Some consider its discovery either a mistake or an elaborate hoax. They rightly point out that no other Norse artifacts were found at the excavation site. No weapons, no tools, no pottery. If Vikings had truly been there, they would certainly have left behind many more traces. Some also believe that the coin could have been planted by someone seeking to create a historical mystery. And yet, careful research has confirmed that the main coin is indeed a genuine Norwegian coin dating back to the 11th century and not some modern counterfeit. Now the only question remains, how did it end up in this place, thousands of kilometers from its homeland? The main penny isn't the only mysterious coin found where it shouldn't be. The archives of history hold numerous other strange artifacts. These finds baffle historians and may indicate contact with the Americas long before Columbus. One striking example are Roman coins discovered in Texas and Venezuela in the mid-20th century. A collector claimed to have stumbled upon them in a small Texas town, and another set was found by a river in Venezuela. These coins were minted more than 1,000 years before Columbus's voyage. This raises fascinating speculation. Could Roman sailors or shipwreck survivors have reached the New World centuries before its official discovery? There are other mysterious finds related to coins found on Oak Island, a famous site believed by many to be a pirate treasure den. This island off the coast of Nova Scotia has yielded various strange artifacts over the years, including coins of unknown origin. Some appear to be European, but how and when they arrived remains a mystery. Were they left behind by early explorers, pirates, or are they later items that have been misinterpreted? Perhaps the most astonishing finds are the Japanese coins discovered in Kenya. Archaeologists stumbled upon them in the ruins of an ancient Swahili settlement on the coast of that African country. The coins date back to Japan's Edo period, hinting at early trade links between Africa and Asia previously unknown to historians. While this discovery isn't directly related to the Vikings or North America, it proves that ancient currencies often traveled vast distances. Artifacts continue to be discovered in the most unexpected corners of the planet, forcing archaeologists and historians to rethink established ideas about the chronology of our past.